DC Fandom! Woo! There are two things that I'd like to talk about coming from DC Fandom. Gotham Knights and the new Batman film. One of which I like, and the other... First off, let's talk about Gotham Knights. We've all waited a long time for this reveal. And during DC Fandom, we got a reveal trailer and a gameplay trailer. But it is not what we suspected. A lot of people, including myself, thought it would be a game similar to Arkham, with Batman and the combat we love. It isn't. Batman is dead in this game. Now, I don't know if that means that they're continuing from Arkham Knight, or if this is its own thing, but it's a surprise. Batman being dead and its departure from Arkham isn't really what concerns me. What concerns me is the gameplay we saw. Arkham Knights you can play it co-op. There's 4 different characters to choose of, and that's all that is fine. But the minute I was watching the gameplay and saw levels above characters' heads and like the damage being in the air when you hit someone, that's what got me concerned. Immediately I thought of Assassin's Creed, the newer ones, Origins and Odyssey, which were a pretty big departure from the original games. And it just kind of concerns me, because I don't think that was the best kind of direction to go. A lot of people have been comparing it to the new Avengers game, and I hope it doesn't become one of those gear grinding, games where you have to level up in order to continue. You have to focus on grinding, because that's never really been what the Batman games have been about. You could beat the game without leveling up at all in Arkham City and the other games. I mean, just look at the Mr. Freeze boss fight.
You cannot run from me!
An important element of Gotham Knights is that as the player increases in power and ability, their foes keep pace. So confronting a villain like Mr. Freeze can be a very different proposition at level 5 or at level 15. And not just in terms of stats, but in the kinds of attacks and defenses they bring to bear. And that was just a short peek at Gotham Knights. We're going to have more to show you in the future.
Now, I know we didn't get to see much of that fight, but even from what we could see, it's just hacking and slashing and beating him up. And this is a character who has had some of the best boss fights in the franchise of these games. Like, the Arkham City boss fight is one of the best boss fights that I personally have ever played. You can even hear the man who's doing the voiceover for this gameplay. He talks about how important levels are and how levels matter when you're taking up an enemy. And that is not the kind of way I want my game with these awesome characters that I've grown up with to play out, because I know that these kind of games, they become gear grinders, and it's all about just grinding for levels instead of actually progressing through the main campaign. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the combat of Gotham Knights. And what it reminds me of is, if you've ever seen gameplay from DC Universe Online, that's what it reminds me of. Very low scale, just kind of spamming one button until your enemy falls, which is a huge departure from what fans of Batman games have come to love. Because the Arkham games, they've had countering and dodging being a big part, and I think dodging will be a big part of this gameplay, as I've seen, but there seems to be no counter, and it's kind of sad for someone who's grown up with these games to see what we expected to be another great entry into the franchise, or maybe not to the franchise, but with the formula that the older games have had. But now they're taking it, and I'm not mad that they're changing it. I'm a little scared of these new combat that we've seen in other games, and it has just been repetitive and boring in other games. And I don't want this game to be repetitive and boring. I'm just concerned that once release day hits, it's gonna suffer from those same flaws that all these other games have. Now, don't take what I say with a certainty, because this is still just pre-alpha footage. The game has yet to be finished and released, so we can't comment on how it plays or if it's good or if it's bad until the game releases. But from what I've seen, I want to go into this game with a little bit of caution. Now for the time we've all been waiting for. I've been waiting for this the entire time I've been talking. We're going to talk about something that I am super excited for. The new Batman movie. We've only gotten a teaser trailer, but still, it looks good. There's a lot of uncertainty before. It sounded good, but people were concerned because of what we've seen in the past. But in my opinion, from what we've seen, I am just super excited. I mean, there's just one clip that it just seems like year 2 Batman to me. Because this is a younger Batman who's still like a vigilante. People don't trust him as like a symbol of hope. And I think this one scene that I'm about to play, it just sums that up.
The hell are you supposed to be? I'm vengeance.
Now that is just pinnacle year 2 Batman. The extra violence, the dumb one-liners like I am vengeance. That it is a movie depiction of year 2 Batman. And that is just so cool because I think it's the most accurate we've gotten of like a year 2 or really just a comic book Batman. The Nolan trilogy, it brought realism, like a lot of realism. And the Michael Keaton Batman, it brought, a little bit more of kind of the unrealistic but still Batman. But this just seems like Batman. Like, I don't see it as someone playing Batman. This just seems like Batman, And that is what's so exciting to me. Because whenever I watch any other trailers, it's like, oh, cool, that's a cool depiction of Batman. But this feels like, oh, that is Batman. There's no doubt in my mind that is Batman. Now, I watched all of DC Fandome, so I watched Matt Reeves talk about the movie he's creating. And the passion that you can tell from the way he talks about this film, it gets me excited on another level, besides what we saw. Because you can just tell that he wants to build a world unlike what we've seen from all these other films. He wants to build a world that feels like Gotham from the comic books. He wants to make a comic book Batman and put him on the screen. By no means is that an easy task. He has a lot of depictions to live up to. I mean, the Nolan Batman was one of the greatest. But I believe, from what we've seen, from hearing him talk about the movie, I think that this movie is going to be good. I think it's going to be a great depiction of Batman, and I think it'll pave the way for a great new DC universe. I think DC's finally kind of getting their act together with these movies. The new Suicide Squad movie looks all right. I haven't really looked into that one a lot, but I think James Gunn was the man for that job. And I think Matt Reeves is the man for this job. I think he's going to make a great Batman movie that people will remember. Now I want to switch topics over to speculation of this new film. Because there's a lot of that going around. Especially about the murderer in the beginning who wraps the tape around the man's face. So I've seen comments of people thinking it's Hush. Personally, I think it's Riddler. And I think that because, there's obviously Riddler in this movie with the question marks at the end of the trailer and just those cards, assuming the cards are from the man in the beginning, then yeah, I think that's dead set Riddler. That's Riddler from the Arkham games, leaving clues and messages to Batman, toying with Batman. So I think that I'm taking this with the man in the beginning is the same man who's sending out the cards, and doing all this stuff. So that's why I think it's Riddler. But I've seen people say it's Hush. That was a big one I've seen. And so I really think that's interesting. I mean, they've said that there's going to be a lot of different characters in this movie. So it leaves us kind of up to interpretation. Like, we know that kind of the main villain is Riddler, but there are a bunch of supporting characters. And so I'm leaning towards the idea that is Riddler. But I could be entirely wrong. They could be pulling a fast one on me. Now, that is not the only character we have seen. We've gotten looks at the new Catwoman and the new Commissioner Gordon. Both look awesome. They look great, just like everything else in this teaser we've gotten. This is sizing up to be an awesome rendition of comic book Year 2 Batman. Now, what I'm expecting with the kind of the police Batman dynamic is it should be hostile, It's Year 2 Batman, right? But kind of what we've seen is they've let him walk into crime scenes, they gave him evidence, So that might be Gordon pulling some strings, knowing that he can do good, but still, I'm excited to see how that plays out, because we've seen Year 1, Year 2, that kind of Batman before, and he's usually being pursued by the police. But from what we've seen from this teaser, they let him onto a crime scene. So I want to see how that dynamic plays out. And I also want to see how the dynamic between Batman and Catwoman is. Is it going to be kind of like how it was in Nolan trilogies? How is that character going to develop? I think there are a lot of questions, and it's probably way too early to kind of have these questions. This is our first teaser of the film. But I think that as long as they draw from the comics, I think Matt Reeves will do a great job. Okay, that is it for what I wanted to talk about in this video. If you want me to talk about anything else from DC Fandom, because there was a lot, then just leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me grow my channel so more people can see the stuff I make. Thanks for watching.